Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jennifer Urezzio, and this is Stories with the Divine. There are several times in my life that I can point to and say, here's proof that the divine knows who I am. And I feel it's so important for others to share and hear those stories. This show is dedicated to providing a forum for those narratives. It's so important for you to know your conscious connection to your own divinity. And I'm with Nina Manolson, and actually, she's the reason why this show has been created. She told me a story, and I was so awestruck, and I just wanted to learn more, and I wanted to hear more stories. So, welcome, Nina. How are you?
I am so great, and I am so delighted to have been part of the inspiration for this show because we need these stories.
We
We
do, and I think
really
it's
do. And
we really
we,
do, and I think it's so amazing because it when we tell it, we actually go through that memory, and then we realize and get a stronger reconnection with it, and it gets more into our cellular memory, and then we have more stories to share. So I want to jump right in. You told this
yeah,
amazing story about like as I would put it, like you put God on notice that you wanted a direct result, like you were not fooling around. Can you share that story with us?
absolutely. So I have the great fortune of trekking in Bhutan. This was probably about 25 years ago. And so I was with my mom. We were on a trek. We had a guide. We were being super responsible. And one day we were going really slowly, and our guide was getting a little impatient. And he said to us, he said, just stay on this one path and you will end up at our camp for the night. So I was like, no problem. So my mom and I are in the Himalayas. We are hiking, but the path was not quite as clear. Metaphor here, path not quite as clear as he said it was going to be. So at some point it was like, well, do we take the path that goes up or do we take the path that goes down? These choices happened several times to the point we were completely and utterly lost, and it was nightfall. So we finally, oh, and then there was one other piece in there. He had made me a stick to guide as I was walking. And as I was crossing a river over some stones, the stick broke. So I'm sitting on the other side of the river crying and so upset. And every disappointment of my life came flooding up, right? You gave me this stick, you whittled this stick, you said this stick would guide you. And here it is. Not only did it break, but I ended up in the river and I'm lost,
Yeah.
right? It was like depths of despair.
Yep.
So then we
Shaking
were
your
like,
fist at the divine going, I'm pissed. I'm so mad at you.
I am so mad. I am so disappointed. You have let me down. There is no relying on you now. Now we're on our own, right? Like, fine, fine, be that way, right? So then we're like, okay, we're going to find a place just to stay sheltered for the night. We find this, literally, I'm not exaggerating, a yak herder's hut that had been closed up. We move the stones, we get in. My mom, meanwhile, turns into one of those moms that move buses when their kids are being run over. Like, I'm like, Mom, let's go into the woods, just not far, but just come back with some kindling because I have just a few matches. Turns out most days I would pack my stuff up, I'd put the matches and everything in my duffel. That day happened to put the matches in my pocket.
Oh,
Had a few matches.
nice.
Unbelievable, right? So she goes off into the woods, comes back carrying truly a tree. I'm like, Mom. She's like, what? Like, as though it was the most normal thing for her to pick up a log that on a regular day would be truly impossible for her to pick up. She brings the log. We're snapping these little fir things off of the tree because they will light quickly and create a fire. And she's snapping it off like it's like matchsticks. And I'm like yanking and tugging. I can't get them, right? So we get a fire. We're making it through the night. We make it through the night. Longer story there. We get back, on the path. We're sort of at the crevice between two giant mountains. And my mom says, I think it's this way. And I'm like, no, Mom, I really, really think it's this other way. And I'm like, this is a pivotal decision.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm going to trust myself. I was like, I really believe this is the direction. And I thought, if we're in the wrong direction, we're sunk. Because essentially, the last town we had passed was 5 days prior.
Oh my gosh.
So I was like there, and in the night we heard like wild animals. I didn't even know what the heck they were.
This is just
So
everyone, so you know, this is the 106th reason why I will never go camping or hiking.
oh, and there's a really one moment I have to share. There was this great mama bear moment where I said to my mom, I said, I'm so tired. I just want to sleep for a minute. And she said, just close your eyes, go to sleep. I said, I'm afraid if I fall asleep, I'm going to roll into the fire. And she was like, no, no, I'm right here. You sleep. And I was like, slept so soundly for that 1 hour, more soundly than in my entire life. So we
Wow.
get up, we go up, we start up this mountain, and we're just sort of at the tree line. And I know that once we pass the tree line, first of all, there's no more wood and it gets really barren. And now we're going up a really, really big hill. And I was like, okay, I'm tired. I am so tired. And my mom was like, let's just rest for a minute before we try to go up and see if we can see anything from further up. And so I lay down. And by this, I think it was like around 7 in the morning by then. And I lay down on the side of the mountain, like sort of lying down vertically, you know, because it was like a steep mountain. And I was like, okay, God, this is it. We cannot be lost anymore. We will not survive another night out here. I need to be found. We need to be found now. And I want to be in my tent by 10 a.m. This is no messing around. We're in trouble. So then my mom says, okay, let's keep going. So we make it up to the tree line. Just past the tree line, we gather some wood just before we get, so that we can get past the tree line with a little wood. We start trying to light a fire. And I'm like remembering like what my dad taught me about like building a little teepee and starting the fire. And I light one match and poof, the wind gone. I light another match, poof, gone. And I'm like, Mom, I got one more. Can you come here? Like, let's just like cover this little match with our hands. And so we huddle together this one match, we light on this little kindling, and it's not even like lit, it's just kind of smoking. But the smoke is enough that it goes for a few minutes and we hear a whistle from so far away. We look way up the mountain and there's this dot of red, somebody in red waving their hand frantically, like absolutely frantically. And I'm like, and then we start jumping up and down, waving our hands. They come running down, we go running up, and we're found, right? We're found. And there's sort of an amusing story. They bring down some donkeys for us to get on because to help us get up because we've been out all night. And I get kicked off right away. And so I'm sitting there and I'm crying. And they're like, in Bhutan, there's no crying. So they're like, no, don't cry. You're fine. You're found. And I was like, it's been a really hard day. And then there was these Dutch people who were also on the tour, and they found this other group that had found us. And, you know, we ended up back in our tents by 10 a.m. So first of all, the story is of how incredible, like I was so clear. The other thing that is so interesting is I was brought up not only by my mom, but this wonderful woman, Sheila, very devout, religious woman. And on that day that we were lost, she called, and she, you know, she was with us when I was growing up, and then she went off and had her own life and moved to England and then was in Barbados. And, you know, like she had a whole other life. She called my dad that day and said, I had a dream that Nina was in trouble. Is she okay? And he
Wow.
said, oh yeah, she's fine. They're trekking in Bhutan. They're having the time of their life. And it was later, you know, who heard my prayers first, right? Sheila, who was, we were heart connected 100%. And she was 100% hooked up all the time. And so it spoke to me so much about like, okay, there really is like there is someone to lean on, because my default is distrust.
Yeah.
My default is no, there's nobody there. And in that moment, it wasn't just like the divine, like saying, yeah, I got you. but it was Sheila going, yeah, yeah, we heard. I passed the message, or however
Right.
that happened. I don't even know. So it was so, um, it was a pivotal moment for me in my life in terms of my
I
sense
mean,
of belief.
it's an incredible story, and there's, I mean, it's kind of like a movie story, right? Like there's so many now that you're kind of sitting and I'm listening to it, right? There's so many like, oh wait, did you listen to that? Oh wait, did you hear that? Oh wait, look, there's another example, and another example, and another example, and I think that's I think those stories of when that happens are key for us because they're a physical manifestation of what is possible and what we miss on a day-to-day basis. And here you had an entire lifetime's journey in a day and a half or 2 days, right?
Yes. Yeah.
How has that story or that experience, how has it helped you over the last 25 years?
Yeah, yeah. So there's one more piece of the story that's sort of interesting, which is that when we were found, and then when we were heading back to our base camp, everybody was staring at us, and everybody we passed. And so finally, when we got back to the base camp, I said to the people who were there, like, everybody was staring at us. What's up? And they said everybody was looking for you and calling your name,
Wow.
but you were on a completely different mountain range, it turns out. So it's a good thing you went up that mountain, that you turned left instead of turned right. Otherwise, we would have never ever found you. We were on this mountain range, and you had walked onto that other one.
Whoa.
And there was something about that. Everybody was calling your name. And
Yeah.
even as I say that, like, for us to call our own name, to call ourselves home, to be called into ourselves, to be called into um,
Existence.
presence,
Yeah.
existence. Yeah, there was something about that that I said, I want to exist. I need to be found. I am going to survive this. This is not a possible, like,
Right.
dying out here is not a possibility. That's
Yeah.
not happening. So my clarity, but then I'm calling myself in and also being called into existence.
Yeah. And after that, everything seems like a piece of cake, right? You know, like
Yeah.
I think that's that it, when we have those connections and listen, that's a really big ticket connection, right? Like that's a big
Mhm.
moment. Like there's a lot of fanfare there rather than, hey, just a little small moment.
Mhm.
Um, it's just reinforces our ability to tap into that unlimited source of power and love. And we do it in those times of great distress because there's a lot of power behind that, right? There's a lot of
Mhm.
urgency. But we can do it on a day-to-day basis uh, without having to have those moments of extreme, right?
Life-threatening moments.
And and
Yes.
I love this name thing because so often when you are having a dream and you hear your name called, right? That it's said that that's a spiritual calling, right? And then there's the name that God calls you. That's what I call my higher power, which
Mhm.
we can never even put into words, right? And that once you hear that, it's not something you share with someone else either. It's something very close. So there's such power in naming something. Um, I I could talk to you all day, and I love your stories, and you're such a good storyteller. But I just want to flip gears for a second
Yeah.
because you like obviously everyone you're watching Nina, you can see her power, you can see her connection. What do you do in your day-to-day life? Like, what's your job?
What's my job? So I help women embody. I help women create body peace. I help women who struggle with their relationship with their food and body end that war and create a relationship that's based on compassion, connection, support, respect, authenticity, right? Really treating our body like she is divine, because she is,
Yeah.
right? And it's really calling ourselves into that relationship that we have with ourself, with our body, with our food, with what nourishes us. So that is work that I'm completely passionate about.
Yeah. And in alignment with, you can hear it in your voice. So
Hmm.
as we wrap up, give out your website. I'll post it in the comments, but I want everyone to hear it.
Oh, thank you. So my website is ninamanolson.com.
Beautiful. Well, Nina, thank you
Yeah.
so much for spending the time with us today. Truly amazing story. And your mom sounds like a really amazing chick.
She's a powerhouse.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
right now, an 89-year-old powerhouse.
I love it.
Yeah.
So amazing. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for playing with us today.
Oh, thank you, Jennifer.
Everyone, you've been listening to Stories with the Divine. And if you're interested in having a deeper connection, you could go to the website at soullanguage.us/gift of purpose to really understand your purpose and your connection with your own divinity. Okay, everyone. Bye for now.